Hi, folks, and welcome to White Collar Week. It's the isolation that destroys us. The solution is in community. Today on the podcast, we have the truth tellers, Larry Levine and Holli Coulman of the Wall Street Prison Consultants and Pink Lady Prison Consultants. I want to warn you right up front, this is a no-holds-barred show with expletives flying. Both Larry and Holli did federal time. Larry in 11 different facilities over 10 years, and Holli in one facility, but her bid included 60 days in the hole. If you are looking at prison time, or you have a family member, friend, colleague, or client who's in trouble, this is an episode you will want to watch or listen to. So coming up, the truth tellers, Larry Levine and Holli Coulman on White Collar Week. I hope you'll join us. Hello, and welcome to White Collar Week, a podcast sponsored by Progressive Prison Ministries, the world's first ministry serving the white-collar justice community. I'm Jeff Grant, co-founder and your host. I served almost 14 months in a federal prison for a white-collar crime I committed when I was a lawyer, so I know that it's the isolation that kills us, and the solution is in community. So let's get started. Hi, folks. Welcome to White Collar Week. We have a fantastic show tonight. Two of my very favorite people, Larry Levine from the LA area and Holli Coulman from the Dallas area. And we're calling this episode The Truth Tellers because the truth is that these people know what's going on. And there's so much misinformation out there and so many pretenders trying to do what these two wonderful people do that we just want to separate the wheat from the chaff, as it were. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask Larry and Holli to both give a little background on themselves. We'll give them about 5 minutes each, and then we'll get into some conversation. So Larry, why don't we start with you, Larry Levine?
Hey, glad to be here on your show. I want to touch on something you say, the truth tellers. You know what they say, that 50% of what you hear is bullshit and the other half isn't true. Who am I to say? Okay. I'm Larry Levine. Maybe you've seen me on CNN, Fox, MSNBC, Bloomberg, somewhere. Seems like I've been everywhere. I spent 10 years in federal custody for narcotics trafficking, securities fraud, racketeering, obstruction of justice, and machine guns. I dabbled into a lot of different things. And I was in 11 different correctional facilities during my federal sentence. I got 2 10-year sentences and a 5-year sentence, and they ran them all together. So it sounds like 25 years was really 10. And the reason why I was in so many different facilities is I helped out so many different inmates with early releases, medical care, transfers, furloughs, job changes, all kinds of shit. Justice Department got a little pissed at me. You know, what is the easiest way to deal with a problem? Get rid of it. So they moved me around, which really didn't bother me. Got to see the country, got to fly on Con Air, got to experience a lot of things most people don't. And I helped out so many people when I was in custody that people are like, wow, I wish I had met you before I went in and you could have worked with me and worked with my lawyer. And being a smart-ass Jew, I thought, well, shit, I could turn this into a business. And I did, and here we are now. I run Wall Street Prison Consultants and Pink Lady Prison Consultants, along with Holli Coulman, who is also with us today. And essentially, we help people. We do, people that come to us, they're screwed. They're fucked. There's just no question about it. We do damage control. We help people get into programs so they can get out early. And we get them in position so they can take advantage of these programs. So we can get them into a good institution. I mean, we're not their travel agent, but we can get them into an institution that is geographically desirable, easy for their families to visit them at. We get them into we can assist them. Nobody can get anybody into anything. We can help them qualify for several different Federal Bureau of Prisons programs that get people out early, get people extra halfway out, whatever it may be. And that's essentially what we do, 8555 prison. You can get a hold of us 24/7. So I think I've run my gums enough, told my story, and I'm going to hand it off to Holli.
Thanks, Larry. Hi, Holli.
Hey, Jeff. Thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, sure.
So my name is Holli Coulman. My story is I worked for a very large tech firm out of Silicon Valley. I was the executive assistant or chief of staff, quote, to the senior vice president of a particular business unit. And back in the day, well, it's still happening, but at that level, we were whining and dining and taking a ton of customers all over the world. Everything filtered through my credit cards, everything. Some questionable things, yes. Meaning a lot of things from our executive team, some of myself, even personally, but not to the level of what my charge was by any means. What happened, the company was doing a reorganization and merging things, and I took a package left. And a year later, on my birthday, I had 13 FBI agents at my front door knocking on my door for a search warrant.
Open up, FBI!
That's how it went. And of course, at that point, they just had a search warrant. They were looking for things that were purchased on these credit cards. It mostly was, like I said, all travel. So there was nothing. They ended up taking my cell phone, my husband's cell phone, and a computer and returning those to me 3 months later. But in the meantime, you're going through this trauma of like, what's going on? This is a federal case. What do I do? Had to find an attorney, found an attorney, and basically it was an investigation. There was no indictment. A plea deal came right away, and I'm still, shell-shocked about this. And this is the part where we help women because it's the unknown and the things that you just don't know that's going to happen. You need to be prepared. And I was not. And I looked around on the web trying to find information, couldn't really find a whole lot. And subsequently, I went ahead and took a plea. My plea was for 27 to 33 months on one count of wire fraud. When I met with the FBI and the United States attorneys and my attorneys were present, they started with my entire spend at $2.3 million. So once I pushed over some evidence that I had kept, a big 5-inch binder, shoved it across the table, they shoved it right back, took a break, and said $954,000. So, but still, that's not the right amount of money, and it's still a shock.
Was that just an arbitrary number?
Arbitrary number. Mm-hmm. It came under $1 million, so the sentencing guidelines.
Yeah, of course.
That they kind of knew where they wanted me, and I didn't know that at the time. Again, I'm like $954,000. You got to be kidding me.
What you didn't know, Holly, is they were talking to somebody on a radio that had a dartboard, and they were throwing They said, "All right, charge her with this."
Why not? But it does matter. It does. The monetary value matters. And my attorney told me this is the best deal you're going to get, so you might as well take it. Went ahead and pled. Sentencing, I got 21 months. Did 21 months at Victorville Women's Prison in Adelanto, California, and entered that world where I met so many different women, so many different charges. It was completely different, meaning the women were than what I expected. And the true travesty of this whole system and going through it, seeing people who were really not necessarily fully guilty having these horrendous sentences because they took it to trial. Family relationships, seeing everything, those disintegrate. Not knowing what was next, meaning how to prepare and go to halfway house / going back into society. Supervised release. This is all with a white collar amount attached. So I told myself, I'm going to get my paralegal, because what am I going to do when I get out? My criminal defense attorney hired me in his law firm, and I had hired a prison consultant who really didn't necessarily help me, and this is how I met Larry. I called him, and he answered my question within 5 minutes and had me set.
Oh, so just to be clear, this was a different prison consultant that
is correct.
Okay,
I did.
good.
He did not help me.
I would like to buy a vowel. Looking for
No.
Don't.
I know.
Okay.
So anyway, I met Larry. This is how, and we started comparing information, and just saying, this is an area that I want to get into. Knowing the whole process and helping somebody, to minimize the impact and be a good human and go on. It was purposeful to me. It was something that was purposeful. So that's how I came on board with Larry, and now I'm a paralegal at the Dallas County Public Defender's Office. So it's just to show and share my story and experiences, and then of course help everybody from basically what we say, cradle to grave, right?
That's wonderful. So did you two have Jackie Polverari on your show together, or did you just have her, Holli, on yours? How did that work out recently?
I did an impromptu restitution, conspiracy Zoom meeting, just to see, because people are always, pinging me out in the social media. We're going, hey, could you talk a little bit more about this? And she came on.
Yeah, she's in Connecticut with me, and the two of us speak often kind of locally at different colleges and all. And in fact, we're doing it on the 18th of October. We're speaking at Albertus Magnus College.
I think it's fantastic.
So I want to give a little shout out for Jackie there.
Yeah.
So, and Holli, you were on Access Hollywood today?
I was. They wanted to talk about Lori Loughlin going to Victorville, where I served my time. So they wanted, more of the glam, thinking, again, Camp Cupcake, they have yoga, they have Pilates, they have none of that. So,
have you ever met Lori Loughlin?
I have not. I have not met her in person. No.
Yeah.
I lost her on the phone.
Did you really?
Remember, she called me up and pretended she was somebody else. I get a lot of people calling me. I got a lot of bullshit callers come in. And I'm like listening to this woman. I'm like, and I'm just working on stuff. And I'm thinking, wow, this lady knows a lot about this. She knows too much about this case. So I listen. I go, shit, I know who this is. I said, look, Lori, let's not bullshit each other. I know who you are. So let's jump to the issues. What are you really looking for? And we spoke for, 15 or 20 minutes. And she never called me again. I basically said, she was in denial. Okay, really in denial. More so than most people, that she even committed a crime. So I explained to her conspiracy charges, wire fraud, mail fraud, bank fraud, kind of how it was all put together. And I said, listen up, Aunt Becky. You need to pull your head out of your ass. You should have taken that first fucking plea deal they offered you. Because now they're going to come back down the road and they're going to supersede you and they're going to hit you with more charges. You missed a grand opportunity, and they did. About 6 weeks later, boom, superseding indictment. And she eventually pled out to it. I don't know if she actually hired any prison consultant. I have suspicions, but
I do too, but don't know.
I actually have a wall of my office that's plastered with articles of prison consultants who claim that they represent Lori Loughlin. So it's.
I was going to say, well, there's plenty for you. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I can barely see out. I can barely see out the windows.
Yeah.
So let me tell you a couple of stories. The first story is when I got contacted by Larry, or I can't remember how we got together. And he invited me to be on your old show, Larry. I guess Street Justice, it must have been.
Street Justice with Bruce Cameron.
And I listened in, and of course, it's wild and wacky. And I said, I'm not going to come on the show till you and I speak on the phone. And we spoke on the phone, and I tried to explain to you who I was. I certainly wasn't that well known. You were probably very well known. And I tried to explain to you that I was a reverend, and we started talking about it. And you were the sweetest, nicest guy in the world. And I recall saying to you, Larry, I promise you, I will never tell anybody that. Right? So now that I've exposed that on my own podcast, I'm telling you that your appearance belies your true nature.
And that's very true.
Right?
Yes.
That's the truth. So that's the first thing I want to say. Okay. The second thing I want to say is that exactly today, by the way, Larry, or a year ago, I visited you and your wife out in Moore Park. And I I think I was the only one who's ever slept in your studio on the sofa there.
I have one. Fell asleep. Actually,
In the studio. Ooh, but Jeff, you were in the studio. That's
I think
a
I
big
did
deal.
day naps in that studio.
Yeah, the only way I know it was a year ago today is that a Facebook memory popped up, and I said, I can't believe we're doing it the same day. That's great. So, why don't we leap from there, kind of into why you decided to be helpful to other people? It's kind of an entrepreneurial spirit. It's something that that takes a lot of time, that there's a lot of people suffering out there. Not everybody can pay you, that you have to be really committed to wanting to help people, and especially in an environment where they're not necessarily committed to receiving the help.
Right.
So why don't we talk about that a little bit? Because I think that kind of that throws the dart right into the middle. I'm going to keep my metaphors right. That throws the dart right into the middle. Like, what is it about this that really drives you?
I want to jump in and say something. I asked Holli a long time ago, if she did hire another consultant. I said, when she called me, well, why didn't you call me originally? She had just reached out to me. And Holli, what was the reason that you didn't just reach out to me originally?
I said you were scary.
She thought I was scary. I don't. People think I'm
Not
scary.
Yeah.
It's the appearance. The appearance.
Abrasive. Had thought.
I wear the glasses because they make me look like an asshole. I mean, seriously.
But yes, that's the reason why.
But what we do, it's serious things. It's all serious. And people need to be scared. They need to pay attention. And when they get to talk to me, they know, all right, this guy's not completely crazy. He's on the level. He has good information, but maybe the glasses turn people off. I don't know. When Holli reached out to me when she initially reached out to me, I hit her with the $1 million question. Like, do I know you? Who are you? And I had to make sure. I'm suspicious even to this day. The FBI's calling with somebody to try to set some bullshit up. I'm always suspicious of things. And, and I told her, because we were texting, I said, just call me. And she had a fucked up Wi-Fi phone connection because she was out in South Carolina at the time. And finally called me, and we got to talking about her issue. And it's ironic. Another consultant who's not a bad guy named Michael Santos actually told her to call me, of all people. Told her he could help. And I figured out her issue in about 5 minutes. And she's right. Okay, here's what you need to do. Here's why. The government's full of shit. And at that point, when she told me she was working with this other consultant and he never paid her, kind of ripped her off, I said, well, why don't you come and work with me? I knew she was a smart chick. She was on the ball. And I don't know, I get a lot of calls from people that want to work with me. Holli didn't have her head up her ass. She knew what she was talking about, and that's hard to find. I mean, Jeff, you did federal time. You've got a whole wall of consultants that claim they did stuff with Aunt Becky, and people have opinions. I have this on our marketing paperwork, on our brochures, that everyone has an opinion, but are they qualified opinion? I'm a qualified opinion. Holli is a qualified opinion. Jeff, you're a qualified opinion. People are trying to get advice from people that essentially never served one day in custody, that are telling them what's going to happen to them. And it's like I tell people, well, if you were going to have brain surgery done, would you want someone who's actually done it? Or do you want someone that read it out of a book, So what we do is, we do damage control. We help people. We put people on a path, and we give them guidance, and we give them a plan so they can get into a good location, take advantage of programs, and get back to their families and re-enter society essentially as quick as possible. I mean, right now with COVID-19,
Mm-hmm.
Everything's up in the air. Anything I would have told people at the beginning of the year, I mean, I've altered my thought pattern.
Yeah.
Because the DOJ, as we know, the BOP, they're all over the board on anything. Ask 5 different staff members the same question. You're going to get 5 different answers that all sound plausible, but they're all full of shit. Am I right or wrong, Holly?
No, you're right. And to that, Jeff, when you're asked about, how do we stay committed to this? And when I was inside, like I said, I saw the disparity and the sentence. And somebody may have had a public defender that dropped the ball or an attorney that just didn't follow through, didn't educate. They only talked about the case. They didn't prepare them for any of it. And it matters to me that I cared enough for these individuals that I wanted to see them be successful. I didn't want them to come right back in. Or some of the way our sentencing guidelines and our U.S. attorneys play little games and their playbook. And to educate from that point, it's, like I said, it's an all-encompassing thing, and that's what keeps me going and wanting to have somebody. And you've also got, mental illness. You've got a lot of trauma to deal with, pre-existing things that have happened. That's part of this, even with the crime piece. So helping them get in with good programs or doctors and getting the care that they need, even aftercare as well. So it's just important.
So I'm obviously a point of entry for a lot of folks going through this stuff. Mm-hmm. I don't do what you guys do. I have no idea about programs. I have no idea about any of that. But
you can work, Jeff. You can work for the BOP because they don't have any idea about programs either. They're all.
As I was saying it, Larry, I'm thinking, boy, is that a straight line?
I know. But it is.
But one of the things I find is that people are in trauma. They don't know what they need. They don't know what to ask. Half the time, or maybe literally half the time, a spouse is reaching out because the person is so full of shame and guilt and right. Or is just locked up and frozen. They can't ask for the help they need. Mm-hmm. And then when you start to give them resources, and frankly, you two are two of the resources that I refer them to. There's no way to know if you're ever going to get a second phone call, or if they're just going to disappear into the vapor. So when someone first calls you, how do you talk to them, and how do you let them know that this is the right place to be and that they're going to be treated in a way that's respectful for the situation they're in, and that they have to start taking things seriously, and go through the steps they need to take in order to save their own lives?
Well, everybody has a problem. Everybody has an issue. People call and they know they need something. They know they want help, but they don't know what they need. They don't know why. They're scared. They're angry. They're confused. Their lawyers have complicated things. I know you were formerly a lawyer, Jeff. We won't hold that against you. Mm-hmm. So what I ask them is, well, what is your situation? And it stops. I'm like, oh yeah, well, what is my situation? And I bring them to the beginning. All right, let's step them through their crime. And I'm not here to pass judgment on them. We're going to talk about your crime. Where are you at right now? Have you got a target letter from the U.S. attorney or the FBI, Homeland, whoever? Or have you already been indicted? Have you pled out? Are you awaiting sentencing? I need to know where that person is at so Holly and I can jump in and essentially help them. And people are, as I said before, there's a lot of opinions, but are they qualified opinions? It doesn't matter where they are in their legal journey, let's call it that. Their journey to the BOP, to the Bureau of Prisons. We can help them, but they have to know what it is they're looking for. Once we know what they're looking for, then we can guide them, do damage control, and put them on a path that we can help them achieve their goals. But if somebody doesn't really know what they want, I mean, we could suggest things, but I'm not going to talk to some asshole for hours, giving them suggestions and have them go, and I've yelled at people. I am kind of abrasive sometimes. And I'll ask people, do you understand what it is I'm saying? You're going to go to prison. And, like a lot of times, the number one question I get from people is, am I going to get raped inside?
Yeah.
I get this question. And I tell people, stop watching TV, the Shawshank Redemption. Stop watching all this. It's not like that. But then I address the rape issue. And I'm kind of, as I said, like an asshole. I can't help but fuck with people. I go, well, you know what? When they do it to you the first time,
Oh, it's so bad.
then it will be considered rape. But after that, it might be consensual sex. Because what do I know? Maybe you're going to enjoy it. Well, these people just freak out when I do that. Then I say, relax. I'm just joking. It's not going to happen to you. But the important thing is now I have their attention. Now,
Well, you do.
They're real. I don't think I said that to you because you came out of custody already.
Well, here, the other part we do with the trauma piece is you can tell when somebody's struggling, if it's a husband calling for, or if it's a friend, because you already know right there that there's something going on. I try and make things a little bit easier to say, I understand how people become alcoholics and drug addicts during this process. I drank because it's the only thing that got me to sleep or calm me down until I realized I'm just damaging myself even more. So I try to give people...
Holli's nice one. I'm kind of like the abrasive one, but we have cohesion where, Holli will tell me such and such, you need to call her, you need to reach out to her. She's not getting it. She's not understanding.
Right.
And I'll say, okay. And I'll reach out to the person. I'll say, look, Holli asked me to give you a call. What's going on? I say, look, she's already explained that to you. So let me explain it to you again. And I'm going to explain it to you in different terms. So pay attention to what I'm saying. And after I've drilled a hole in their head and poured some brains in there, they get it. And Holli had given them a perfectly logical answer, but sometimes Holli is too nice. And
Correct. See. Well, not all the time, but
they're not really, they're listening to her voice. She's like a calming voice. But that calming voice sometimes is counterproductive, right? Oh,
we've talked
I just jumped right in. All right, look, here's the situation. This is what's going on. This is how, this is why. Look, there's programs we can get you into. I know what you want. You want to get out early, right? They shake their head. Do you have an alcohol problem? Do you have a drug problem? No. Well, how do you know? I ask people, how do you know? Let's break it down. Do you drink? Yes. All right. How much do you drink? Well, I drink wine. Maybe I'll drink wine 3 or 4 times a week. I go, all right, let's say 3 times a week. When you drink, how many times, let's say, do you consume alcohol each time that you drink? Oh, I don't know. I have 3 or 4 drinks. I said, okay, so let's call it 4 drinks. You're doing that 3 times a week. So you're consuming alcohol 12 times a week. Let's multiply that by a month. Well, gee, now you consumed alcohol 48 times. Now, let's multiply that by 12 months. Well, gee, you consumed alcohol about 550, 600 times a year. Sounds to me like maybe you do have an alcohol problem that could have contributed to your crime. I don't know. I'm not in a position to evaluate you. We have professional people that can do that. And I kind of steer them. Holli kind of does the same thing.
I get the overall. I'm usually the one that can pick out, like I said, if there's a husband calling or a friend or somebody on their behalf, you know something's wrong right there.
Yeah.
And so we know that, that we need to ask more, seeking to understand questions.
I like to ask, hold on, I'll ask, well, is this for you? No, this is for da-da-da-da-da. I'll go, well, really? Well, why aren't they calling? Oh, they're afraid to call. I said, you know what? Get them on the phone right now. Have answers. They know what they need. This is counterproductive for me to go over this with you because I'm just going to have to repeat this to them. So Holly and I try to get that person on the phone. And I didn't mean to cut you off, Jeff.
Wow.
I don't want to lose the thought. I had COVID-19 back in April. I forget.
It's not funny. It's not funny.
No, it's not funny. It's not, but
It's your affect that's funny, Larry. It's
Yes.
not the I met with a guy. This has to be probably 10 years ago, and it was a few weeks before he was going to report to prison, and he asked me if I would meet with him in a diner, and I did, and I told him I had 2 hours to meet with him. So we sat down in the diner, and he proceeded
with the bill.
I don't think it was very much. And he proceeded to tell me his story. And he told me his story for 90 minutes. And at the end of the 90 minutes, he looked at me and he was very self-satisfied. You know, he was very happy with himself that I listened to him. And he said, well, what do you think? I said, what I think is that you had 2 hours of my time and you wasted it talking about yourself for 90 minutes when I have the information you need. Okay. And now you only have 30 minutes to find out what it is you need because you're going to prison in 2 weeks. And he looked at me like I was a Martian, right? He looked at me like I was crazy.
you get people like this.
Right.
Yes. And
And then I said to him, you knew you were coming to meet with me. Did you bring a pad? And he looked like, what do you mean? I called the waiter over. I said, can you bring us a stack of placemats and a pen? I handed him the placemats and the pen. I said, I'm going to give you an extra hour. Start writing. This is a valuable commodity. This knowledge, this information is important. And yet people want to, my experience is that what people want to do is maintain control as much as they can. And they think that the virtues they had when they were successful business people or successful professionals, they think that's what's going to save them instead of turning themselves over to the process and accepting that
because they're not. It's the problem. They haven't faced the fact. That's like the damage control thing. I said, look, you're screwed. Okay, you're fucked. There's no question about that. So we're going to take a long rope, put it around your neck. We're going to pull your head out of your ass, and we're going to put you on a track so you can get out early. You can take advantage of programs. Forget about all that bullshit you think you know and what other people know. And if you really knew this shit, you wouldn't be coming here meeting with me or calling me. Now, would you? No. Okay, there you go.
Now, Jeff, I have to say, and Larry, you know this, statistically speaking, the higher up level of whatever manager or supervisor that they had, it is difficult, CEO level, to pull them in and have them do that because they still think that their own skill set's going to how they manage their life and how they can have, communication with officers and get through this process now. So you got to keep on because once they're in and even after the fact, we've had them come to us to say, wow, should have listened a little bit more.
So let's
can I bring my computer? Well, let me have my cell phone. Now, you get those, Jeff? People
of course.
Summer camp, they can bring all their shit.
Well, what I find is that when people are first going through these things, they are trolling the internet and they've read as much as they possibly can, thinking that there's going to be a magic bullet in there that they're going to find. And
there's no magic bullet.
And well, you guys may be the magic bullet, but
well, we minimize, but again, usually, but that's at that point it's minimization.
But they think that there's going to be something out there, and in truth, that that magic bullet might be inside of them. They may not have actually been truthful about their story, even to their own lawyers.
Mm-hmm. And that happens where they play it. Yeah.
We find things out later. We go and read the PSR, the probation sentencing report. It's like, well, why didn't you tell me this? And then I find out, did you even read your probation report? Because you're telling me this. Meanwhile, the FBI or Homeland Security, whoever, the Secret Service, they're stating, And that's going to adversely affect you at sentencing time. So maybe you should go back through your PSR with me. Let's talk about the facets of your crime. Are you even aware of what you're being charged with and why? You'd be surprised that a lot of these people, they don't know. And that's why they come to us, because we're going to do damage control. The lawyers, again, Jeff, I won't hold it against you, you're a lawyer. The lawyers try to complicate things. They do. Where Holli and I can break it apart in simple terms, giving examples that people will understand. And that's what people need. They need to, first of all, understand the process and what's going on, what they're charged with, so they can get a picture in their head of the whole concept, and then we can guide them. You know, it's like would you put someone behind the wheel of a car that's never driven before? And maybe if you're Asian or something. I'm in LA, I could say that. But the point is that a lot of people, they're just not aware of the federal criminal judicial system.
They're not. And even, and I went to work for my former criminal defense attorney. So we had a conversation. There are things that he didn't know. My restitution was a huge thing that they slipped in, and, it caused tremendous problems on the end for me until Larry helped me clean that up. But so there's things that they don't know that we're able to pick apart. They just don't, they miss things. We've caught things on, again, pre-sentence reports that put one person from one category into another. It was huge. It made a difference.
Well, what I find is that criminal defense attorneys are not subject matter experts on people's businesses or people's industries or the nuances of what it is to be in that industry. And sometimes you really need to understand that. And sometimes the nature of the charges is specific to that industry. And
maybe, and your attorney may not have a clue. Right.
If it's white collar, okay. Were you a leader, manager, organizer? How many crimes do you commit? The most important thing is, what's the dollar amount? What is your dollar amount loss or exposure? Do you have any prior convictions? And touching back on what Holli said, where the lawyers don't know, I've come to a conclusion that the lawyers aren't doing this maliciously. They just really don't know.
They don't. Right.
Yeah.
Law school does not get someone ready as much as they should be to help a criminal defendant fight their case or understand their case. They pass things off. Okay, Holli, when you were working in San Diego for your former defense lawyer, how much of his work did you do, would you say, percentage-wise?
Quite a bit. A lot.
Quite a bit.
Yes. So and this is a paralegal perspective. Yes, a lot. So that tells you a lot right there. And that was my lawyer. A good lawyer.
Pass it off to they pass it off to the paralegal, the legal assistant, who does the majority of the work. Lawyer looks at it, okay, change this, change that. And then the lawyer goes, appears in court. And I've run into cases before where the lawyers weren't even aware of what their paralegal created. They did not bother to read legal documents that they ended up signing. And that leads to problems. I tell people that I'm not a lawyer. What I do is federal criminal litigation assistance. I work with you and I work with your lawyer. We're going to put a path together for success. And lawyers don't like me. They like Holli. They don't like me because when I get involved in things, there has to really start working. The lawyer can't just blow them off. Not that they can blow Holli off. I wake people up. An example, here's what I tell people, that you're going to become educated overnight. That all of a sudden, you're going to understand how and why, and you're going to go to your lawyer, and you're going to say, all right, I want you to look at this, this, and this. And the lawyer's going to like, does this person even know this? Right. The lawyer is going to know that you're talking to somebody that really knows.
Mhm.
And I tell them, don't tell any prison consultant. They're not gonna like that. Some lawyers are okay, but generally lawyers, they don't like prison consultants.
They don't.
They don't want to share the money. Every fucking dime should go to them. You don't need to have an outside source. Meanwhile, we've done damage to people and got their sentence exposure cut. Got help people get lower sentences because we do read that PSR and we do pay attention to what the client is saying. You know, I'm talking too much. I'm sorry.
So why don't we share some stories? But just be careful to not tell names or references that might lead to the names. But we all have stories, and I know you guys have terrific stories. So why don't we tell a couple of stories that the general listener, someone who might be starting their journey, might be interested in hearing. And you know, it can be you don't have to hold back, but please just don't do anything that's descriptive of the person.
Can I go and start?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
It's going to get sued.
I'm going to tell.
Sued. Okay.
I'm going to tell about the warden getting stabbed. I was clerking at the men's medium 2 for the warden, and he was stabbed at Mainline. And when you go inside, you got to pay attention to what you're writing out into the world, such as I was blogging. I was telling about my experience, meaning I was sending via email my daily experiences, and the person was putting it on a blog. And like I said, the warden got stabbed. I was in his office. I was sequestered to the visitation room, locked in, and saw this huge response. And I can't believe it. Victorville is on a complex. So there's a men's penitentiary, 2 men's medium facilities, and a women's camp. And the women do all the work. So all the women were at work, out, unloading semi-trucks, doing everything. This goes down. All the officers from everywhere just come mobilize at the men's medium. And I'm watching the buffoonery of these officers come in. Some are very overweight. Some barely can make it inside. And it was just unbelievable. Guys, the officers were jumping in the back of pickup trucks with their guns, weaving around women who were trying to get out of the way. I'm like, what happens if they drop, a weapon and shoot one of them? No big deal to them. Women were having to turn around semis. And of course, as you know, if you're trying to walk, you can't walk back to camp. They don't let you when you're on the periphery, because even though you're walking to the camp, not away from the camp, you can catch what they call an escape charge.
Yeah.
So, which is even stupid. And so I wrote a blog about this whole event. Like I said, it was just quite the SHIT show. They airlifted the warden out.
Oh.
So finally I finally get back to my unit. I was picked up by my counselor and brought back, was like the last person on the whole complex to be taken back. And when they unlocked the door to send me back, the officer behind the counter he asked me who I should call to come pick me up. I have a couple thoughts for you.
Call an Uber.
Yeah, who do I call? Who do I call?
Oh, they thought you were coming through R&D to get out?
I have no idea. I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. I don't know who you call. So get back. Anyway, I posted this on a blog. It went out. The FBI saw it because it talked about other incidences around on the complex as well. Got pulled in by SIS, the Special Investigative Service, the officers, and they wanted to have a chat. They tried to give me a Series 100 shot for basically putting officers' lives in danger, exposing information about the prison, everything. By the way, this had already been in the media.
Yeah,
so it was a known thing. And they decided I had to meet with the disciplinary officer right away, which was something that was the only good thing. They expunged the shot, but they still took me and threw me in solitary for 60 days.
Wow.
Because of this. It was to try and deter me from blogging or talking about it again.
How'd you get the blog out?
So again, via email, and then they read it. They knew it was coming. They knew exactly what was up. Yeah. And how I found out is the next day I went back into the clerk job for the acting warden, and all of a sudden he comes unglued when I walked in, grabs me by my neck, actually touched me and forced me down the hall by my neck, threw me out in the lobby. And of course, the women that were cleaning the lobby were like, what in the world's going on? And had a couple choice words for me. So they, of course, did a shakedown in my cubicle, pretty epic style. Everything just ripped apart, detergent thrown everywhere, any type of, honey, everything was just a mess. It was just, shampoo squeezed out, toothpaste, everything. It was bad. So.
And how was spending 60 days in the hole?
Horrific. So I understand people in solitary, you don't know what time it is. The lights are on all 24/7. You don't know what day it is anymore. You're only out for 1 hour, and that could be at 5 a.m, and the phones might not be on. And when I say out, that just means walking in front of your cell. You're in a cell. I had room service. They brought me my meals. It was very difficult. There was nobody working to deliver library books. You're usually allowed to read, so no reading. On that 60th day, let me tell you, you get to learn the jail and where they put the SHU, the Special Housing Unit for Victorville. It was at San Bernardino County Jail. So I was in county jail. I know you've been there. We're alumni from there.
We are alumni.
So, and then you learn a schedule about if the feds don't come and marshals don't come and pick you up at 4 a.m., you're not going out on Con Air. But the prison didn't have to share any information with my lawyer where I was. The prison didn't have to say anything, and they didn't. The only way that anybody knew was that my bunkie at the time, my roommate, called a family member and wasn't supposed to do that, could have gotten in major trouble for doing it, but that's the only way. So that's a kind of a crazy story.
Yeah.
So they thought they would deter me. And in fact, when I came back to work, they didn't want me around staff any longer. So they let me have a driving job, meaning driving the girls to work. They wouldn't let me drive staff because they were too worried I'd be saying things about the prison.
Yeah. Or overhearing things they didn't want you to overhear.
Right.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That was yanked.
So Larry, tell us a story or two.
Oh, he's got great ones.
I was 40 or 2. I spent my time in custody helping inmates and busting the BOP's balls. And I knew just how far I could push them. To the point, this one lieutenant, they love to pretend they're in the military, and they call him LT. And I go, LT, if I didn't like you, I would tell you I think you're a scumbag. He's like, oh, and he thought about it. Well, do you like me? I go, I don't know, I haven't decided. But it's just like little things like that they can't put their finger on. Now, I was known at every facility. I spent my time in the law library helping people. This is how I reached where I am today. I didn't know any of this shit before I went. And even being a private investigator, let's back up. I was a troubleshooter for the mafia. They would bring crime to me. I would make crime better. Organized crime, more bang for the buck. I was that efficiency expert. And I took my knowledge and I applied it. Now I'm doing legal work again for people. And the staff knew it. There was a warden he was an associate warden in Texas. And a little soft son of a bitch. He looked like an evil leprechaun. And he comes into the law library one day, and I had done a ton of, people that had outstanding warrants and traffic tickets and all this shit. And I was drawing up motions for people to get that dismissed, to get sentenced to concurrent time, to run concurrent, with the sentence they're serving right now. And you send what's called a conforming copy to them. You send it essentially to the warden to let them know I filed this. People don't know you need to do that. Make a copy. Well, the legal work that I did was so good. They actually thought that it came from the court, and they started dismissing detainers on people based on my motions. I mean, it wasn't an order based on my motion. Well, one day the leprechaun, I guess, found out, all right, this stuff isn't real. He comes into the law library and says, he's holding some documents, he's holding some motions. He goes, which one of you is Levine? And I go, that would be me. What do you want? And he goes, did you do this? And he shows me the motions. I like grab it out of his hand. I go, yeah, I did it. What about it? He starts telling me that I do that. You can't, telling me I can't use pleading paper. He's telling me, and I'm like, really? I says, well, maybe you should brush up on your own policy, because I happen to have it right here. And I pulled out the program statement. They said, your own policy says that I'm allowed to do this. So don't tell me that I can't do something that your policy allows me to do. And I said, but I'll tell you what I'm going to do. You give me a written order telling me that I can't do it, and I'll stop. I said, but until then, until that order comes down, I'm going to keep on doing what I'm doing. And if you have nothing else for me, I said, I'm done here. And I went back to work. And he's just standing there with a lieutenant. And they'd already thrown all the other inmates out of the law library, except one inmate, actually an inmate I was doing legal work for. You stay here. They didn't know who he was, but they wanted a witness. So I went back to what I was doing. And they were frustrated and they left. And there was nothing they could do about it. I would make a big production. I love doing this. I did this at several institutions. Yes. I would walk across the compound very slowly, generally in the evening after mail call, after dinner, on my way to the law library. And I would carry, I don't have one here, a big binder, big black 3-ring binder. And I'd make it a point to walk really slow. And the staff would be with each other, bullshitting, talking, and they would see me. And as I'm walking by, I could see their heads turning and their eyes, and they're pointing, and I know they're talking about me. I would get to the front of the law library door. I would stop. I would turn around and I would look at them. I would hold my binder up and I would point to it. And I would smile and shake my head. And they're thinking to themselves, oh God, what is he doing now? And then I would just calmly walk into the law library. And to be honest with you, Jeff, what do you think was in that binder?
Nothing.
Any idea?
Nothing.
Holly, any idea? Absolutely. You win the new car. Absolutely nothing. I did it just to put them on edge. All right. The average police academy, 6 months, 9 months.
Yeah.
Something like that. I don't know if Holly knows. I don't know if you know, Jeff. How long is the BOP training academy? Anyone in the crowd?
Holly, when you said 3, is it 3?
I think it's 3 months.
You know,
is it 3 months?
The BOP training academy.
I think it's 3.
Holly, you've lost. You can't get the call.
1.
Jeff, you have no.
It's probably a month.
It's 21 days.
Yeah.
It's not. It's 3 fucking weeks. It's 21 days. You know, they put a mirror under their nose. Like, oh, there's condensation here. They're alive. They pass phase 1 of the test. Phase 2, they hold like 2 fingers together. What is next? Well, that's 11. No, that's not 11. That's too stupid. They don't think. A lot of these cops are just filling dead air, filling dead space, doing a job. They're not on what's going on. When they went open institution West Virginia on a mountaintop, I forget which one it was they opened. Where do you think they hired people?
From the mountaintop.
Well, they brought in some staff from the mountaintop.
And that's
So now you've got the people from Wall working in the prison. I know they're all in. Well, I shouldn't say they're all inbred. That's nice. I don't want to, But the point is, they're not getting a professional. Not all bad. I ran into plenty of good staff members that are on my Facebook that I became friends with. I have active staff in staff that think what I do is great, but they can't think logically. Let's jump over to Lompoc. Lompoc is a complex like Victorville. There's several prisons there. They have a big dairy farm operation where they're bottling milk. It's like a milk.
We got our milk.
They're milking the cows and the milk. The little wax plastic cartons that are going out for the West Coast, they all come from Lompoc. Well, the inmates can drink as much milk as they want. The staff does too. They take advantage of it. And there was this big, fat, dumb, goofy hack, this cop. Probably in his mid-40s, had a Beatles haircut, okay? Looked like Baby Huey. And this guy loved his chocolate milk. And I saw him sucking down a bottle of it. And I looked at him. I'll change the last name. I said, "Hey, Johnson, no more chocolate milk." And he has like a goofy look on his face. I'm in the officer's, I'm in the office, the charge reporter's office. He's in there. He's the dude. There's a couple other cops there. I don't know why I went in there for something. No more chocolate milk. And he goes, "How come?" And I says, "Because the chocolate cow died." And he looks at me and gets a really stupid look on his face. He goes, "Did not." I go, "Did so." And we went back and forth. And the other cops start laughing at him. And finally, I had enough. I had shit to do. And I said to the other cops, "Remember, you have to work with him and you have to rely on him if there's a problem." And I left. Okay? They're not all bad. They're not all stupid. They need to really that caliber of staff who gives a shit about their job. A lot of the BOP is under the impression that the institution would run much smoother. If there were no inmates there, they should still get paid. And that's a big problem. They're there. Does anyone besides me know the BOP's mission statement?
I have it written. I don't have memories.
I have no idea.
Yeah, you know it. The man in Connecticut. They are to house you in a safe, sane, secure, humane environment so you can rejoin society as a productive, law-abiding citizen. The BOP has lost sight of what its mission really is.
Well,
they're not their own. When I had clerk's jobs at most places, high-profile jobs, and I would read all their internal shit. Hell, I was even doing college resumes for some of the staff members' kids that were graduating and wanted to get jobs and shit. I would read all their paperwork. I would read everything. Hell, I used to read the package of the instructions on a tampon box when I was 5 or 8 old, when I was sitting in the bathroom. I read and I absorb. So did the tampons. But anyway, being in custody, they're not there to punish you. That's not their job. They're not there to rehabilitate you. The punish is being away from your friends and being away from your family.
That's what it's supposed to be.
It says so. In the BOP's own paperwork says that. They're not here to punish you. But some of these cops, as I was saying, have lost sight of their mission. What is their mission?
Mm-hmm.
And they think it's their job to punish you, and they go out of their way. I mean, you guys probably saw this. Remember the cops that walked around with the big gun belt that had all the toys on it, but no gun?
Yeah.
flashlight and the radio and the 4 pairs of handcuffs. I mean, just all this shit. And then they had taps on their shoes. So you could hear them when they walk. And I go, well, that guy's got mental problems. He really does. I like the staff that would come in. They'd have a radio and a flashlight and their CPR thing.
Yeah.
They carry it in their pocket. They would come in to do a job. At the end of the 8 hours, they would leave. They were helpful. They weren't crusaders. They didn't come in on the weekend on their day off to help shake the place down, just to get their jolly. Some cops did. But I could go on for hours. And I could tell you about
We got stories. I know.
Don't get me started.
So, multiple custody levels. You know, I'm getting ready to launch. Holli and I, our associate Walt Pavlo, we're launching a new podcast called Beyond the Game.
Yeah.
We're going to be doing high-profile interviews with people who have been in custody. People are going in custody. I'm starting a video podcast myself. I'll probably do live called The Midnight Report. You're hearing that first here, where I'm going to be talking about crazy shit, examining cases where wire fraud, mail fraud, all the different fraud cases, or how the law works. And I'm going to highlight on each report a different case that's currently active or somebody got sentenced to the example. So people can relate that to something other than the law. And on the Midnight Report, which people will be able to find on justicebroadcasting.net, I'm launching it next month, October. I'm going to tell a different prison story. Midnight Report. So
There will be one. There will be one. You'll have to tell them the French one. Believe it or not, Larry Levine is French.
I'm going to tell that now.
Well,
when I was at the medium-high prison in Phoenix, Arizona, they call that Black Canyon, is the FCI Phoenix, and people serving life sentences there. I'm in a cell. I was in there with a couple of Hispanics. Well, they got transferred. Who knows? I had the lower bunk because I was the only one left in there. Well, the next day, some guy shows up, and I'm Jewish, Larry Levine. Guy shows up, and he has a swastika tattooed on the back of his head. He's got an image of Adolf Hitler tattooed on his chest, along with Adolf Hitler's birthday. I was pretty cool with this guy, Paul Huss. All right. He was there for robbing armored cars up in Washington and Idaho and up there. Next day, another guy shows up. They called him AZ. I don't know why he was from Arizona. I don't know why they called him. Well, this guy's got the lightning bolts and the long, blue eyes, blonde hair. This guy's like super Nazi. And I was teaching them essentially how to do money laundering. I was coaching them, explaining to them about people's crimes. And AZ says to me, he goes, Levine, he goes, that's French, isn't it? And I go, hey, you're pretty good. I was terrified to think these guys were going to find out I was Jewish. They were going to fucking shank me, and I wasn't going to wake up in the morning, People, and this was a dangerous place. I was in the TV room there, watching TV with some guy. Cool. We're just chatting. I find out he's serving a life sentence. He was the first lifer I had actually met. And seemed okay to me. I decide, well, I'm going to go back to my cell and get some rack time before count and dinner. I'm in my cell about 10 minutes. And all of a sudden, someone hits the deuces. That means the alarms go off.
Yeah.
The sirens go off. They do a massive lockdown. And it turns out someone got stabbed and someone got killed. Well, the guy stabbed and killed was the guy that I had just been talking to, that I was watching TV. Turns out that some other people had come into the TV room after I left, and they were watching the show. This guy changed the channel on the TV, and he didn't ask permission.
Oh, that's a no.
So
Yeah, it's a no, right?
now you can see what my concern is. Hey, are these guys going to shank me in the middle of the night and kill me?
Mm-hmm.
People die in this place. This place has telephone. You guys probably have never seen this. Well, Holli might have saw it at Victorville, where they have telephone poles up like in the middle of the compound and on the yard, and they have wires that are strung between the poles. That's so somebody can't land a helicopter.
Right. That was the whole thing, because there was an air base right next to Victorville.
Yeah.
So that's why.
I was stationed there when I was in the military, Victorville, George Air Force Base, 10th Air Division.
So now, Jeff, you know that Larry's French. So send him a beret.
Yes, I am.
On his father's side.
On his father's side.
So, all right, guys, we have to start wrapping this up.
I know.
So, first of all, I want to make sure that I'm putting in a clear plug for your podcast that started with Walt Pavlo. That's called Beyond the Game.
Correct.
And when's the first episode of that going to drop?
Looks like in the next two weeks.
All right, great.
Don't have a date yet. 2
By
weeks.
mid-October.
Yeah.
Right, and for those of you who aren't aware, Walt writes the white collar column for Forbes.com. He's written a bunch of articles about our work here, so we're grateful to him for that. And I was very happy to hear that you guys are going to get together and do something meaningful. Larry's going to have this pirate radio version of the Midnight Report. He's going to have all night like the Drudge Report, and that's going to be fabulous.
And so you'll be able to hear it live on chaos101fm.com. We do Holli and myself and a bunch of former federal inmates. We do the Street Justice Show, the Friday Chaos Crew, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. Every Friday. You've been on the show, Jeff. You listen in.
Yeah, we're listening.
We talk about everything, and it's Pravda. We speak the truth. And nothing but the truth.
Mm-hmm.
People may not agree with us, honest.
So, as we go,
speechless.
I'm not as we. I am speechless. All right. So, what takeaways would you like people to know about as we kind of get to the close of this? Holli, why don't we start with you? Obviously, women reach out to you in all kinds of trouble. And what's the one or two things that you'd like to have them remember this podcast by, or you'd like to leave them with that will inspire them to get in touch with you?
Know that just reach out, make a call, reach out on social media, that we are available. Don't hold it in. Don't have somebody else just call. You can remain anonymous. Tell us what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
We're here to help. That's what we're here to do. I want to make sure that people know that it's all encompassing. Again, it's depending on where you're at. I mean, it could be even after you've served time and you're completely done and having a really hard time reentering. Just pick up the phone and reach out. If we can't answer it, we have team members that can. Other again, clients that are willing to even talk about their experiences that could mirror theirs. So there are answers. Not everything's on the web, so give us a call.
What's your contact information, Holli?
So you can reach us at wallstreetprisonconsultants.com, pinkladyprisonconsultants.com. There is telephone numbers as well as email. It would come directly to us immediately.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great.
8555 prison.
8555 prison.
577-4766. And my takeaway is that if the feds have reached out to you, you know you've done something wrong, you're screwed. Okay? You're probably going to go into custody. But as I've said several times, we're going to do damage control. We're going to minimize your exposure and make sure that you serve as little time as possible, that you can take advantage of programs that will get you back to your family. There's a lot of consultants out there. There's good ones and there's bad ones. You know, there's people that will talk to you about jail time and white collar advice and give you all kinds of clues. There's some guy who calls himself R-Rap, R-Rap Danny or something. You got a lot of people out there that claim they know things that really have spent little time in custody. If we can't help you, probably know it, but we're not going to bullshit you. That's the important thing. I turn people away all the time, and I tell them, look, you're screwed. Don't hire me. Don't get a fucking penny. And if somebody else tries to charge you and they say that they can do this for you, they're lying to you and they're just going to rip you off. Mm-hmm. It is what it is.
Well, Larry Levine, Holli Coulman, thank you so much for being with me tonight. I know I correspond with you guys all the time, and you're very helpful to me. And I want to invite you to join our white collar support group that we have on Monday nights and talk about this stuff with everyone. We have about 25 people on the Zoom call every Monday night. And actually, this Monday night is our 225th meeting. So
I remember when you started, Jeff.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah. It's incredible.
It's crazy. And the thing is that it's, it's really communal. It's what people put into it, and we don't charge anybody, and it's just trying to build a community out of all of this. And it's working. It's working. So we'll invite you guys on. Actually, come on anytime you want, because you both get the invitation. But I'd like to have you on and to just talk about this and what are the misconceptions and the things that people don't know but should know when they're going through this. So you two are experts, and that would be great.
We would like to have you come back on the Friday Chaos and talk about SBA fraud. Jeff is, you guys all know what Jeff was convicted of. Jeff right now is in a unique position. He was convicted years ago of SBA loan fraud, I think it was.
Yeah, exactly.
Jeff became a former lawyer. He's become an expert on this. And right now we've got all these people who, due to coronavirus COVID-19, who have taken out SBA loans, that have done fraudulent activity, that will probably end up getting charged with SBA loan fraud. So Jeff is at the forefront of a cottage industry, within an industry. And I congratulate you, Jeff.
Well, the thing about that, Larry, is that I always took responsibility for my behavior, but it was impossible for these last 18 or 19 years to explain the circumstances, to explain how the government was pushing out money and how I, of course, took advantage of it. But the context was impossible to explain. And now, obviously, it's way bigger than it was post 9/11. And there's going to be a lot of people in trouble. And there's a lot of people who meant to commit fraud, and there's a lot of people who are going to wander into trouble unknowingly because they were just ill prepared to get their paperwork together, say in 3 days, and apply for complex and complicated loans that they didn't really know what they were getting into. Mm-hmm. We can talk all about that, Larry, and of course I'd love to, but mostly it's the opportunity to be of service to people who don't have to suffer, and the suffering is optional. And I think you guys do a tremendous job and a tremendous service. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so information will be on in the show notes, and we'll be in touch. And love you guys, and thank you so much.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay.
Thank you for joining us on White Collar Week, sponsored by Progressive Prison Ministries. You can learn more about us on our website, prisonist.org. That's prisonist, like feminist. And please remember to rate, review, and share this podcast so that families suffering in silence can find us if they need us. See you next time.